So hi everyone, you're welcome to the 9th session of the Round the Clock Around the Globe Magnetics Conference. Thank you for your participation. Now we have an invited talk from Miriam Jafar that will be 35 plus 10 minutes, and the oral contributions with 12 plus 3 minutes. Sam will be here with me as co-chair, and I'll introduce Miriam from the Universidad Autónoma of Madrid, Miriam is an associate professor at the Department of Condensed Matter Physics at the Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. Is also a researcher at IFMAC Condensed Matter Physics Centers. And last year, she was awarded by the Spanish Association of Magnetism with the Early Career Scientist Prize, the field of magnetism. She has experience with magnetic force microscopy, and today she will be presenting her talk on the advances in magnetic force microscopy. So Miriam, thank you for accepting our invitation. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, I will share the screen. Let's see. Okay, can you see the screen, the presentation? Yes. Okay, thank you for the introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening for everyone. My name is Miriam Jafar. Today I'm going to talk about advances in magnetic force microscopy. Okay. Magnetic force microscopy is a useful technique for characterization of magnetic materials. So first of all, I will introduce this technique and the motivation of this work. Then I will comment briefly the limitation and drawbacks of the technique and some of the ideas we have been working in the last years to overcome some of these drawbacks. And in particular, the development of new advances in MFM methods or operation modes and so-called MFM or deep engineering. So this is a talk about some advances and development in a characterization tool as MFM. So my idea, first of all, is I would like to combine to why it is important. Significant advances in science require the development of new theories, new fabrication tools, but also accurate characterization methods. So we need techniques with high spatial resolution, with high sensitivity, and also with the possibility to achieve complementary information or additional information. Magnetic force microscopy belongs to the scanning probe microscopy family, and SPM is an instrument used for studying surfaces at the nanoscale level. Scanning probe microscopies form images using a probe that scans the surface of a sample and collects the data. The first SPM was the scanning tunneling microscope, the STM, developed at the IBM Research Lab in Zurich by Beinit and Roer in 1982. And it was the first technology to be recognized as having atomic resolution capability. An STM uses the electrical current between the microscope scanning tip and the sample to image the sample surface, but unfortunately, it means that the surface of the sample must be conductive or semiconductive. So it's a limitation of the materials that can be studied. And this limitation brought to the invention of the atomic force microscopy used for measuring topography and more generally, the scanning force microscopy techniques, developed in 1986 by Beinit, Roer, and Gerber. So we have a lot of variation or names in the scanning force microscopy family. It depends on the operation mode or the functionalization of the tip. The topography imaging alone does not always provide the answers that researchers need, and it often doesn't correlate to the material properties. And for that reason, we need advanced imaging modes that have been developed for several years to provide quantitative data on different kinds of surfaces, and many materials properties can be determined by using the different scanning force microscopy techniques, including friction, electrical forces, magnetic forces, conductivity, viscoelasticity, surface potential, and so on. The atomic force microscopy, instead of using the quantum mechanical effect of tunneling, uses the atomic forces to map the tip-sample interaction. We need a cantilever with a very sharp tip at the end, and most of the AFM systems use a laser beam deflection setup. The AFM has a feedback loop using this laser deflection to control the force and the tip position. As shown in this scheme, the laser is reflected from the back to the cantilever that includes the very sharp tip at the end. And as the tip interacts with the surface, the laser position on the photodetector is used as a feedback loop to track the surface for imaging and measuring. We have different interactions between our tip and the sample, and we have a distance dependence. So the intensity of interaction is different as a function of the distance between our tip and the sample. For the case of magnetic materials, we have different tools, different techniques that have been developed for several years with more resolution, sensitivity, versatility to characterize different magnetic samples, magnetic domains, magnetic domain walls at the nanoscale level. And these imaging techniques range from expensive equipment only accessible in big facilities such as synchrotron-based techniques like MCD PIM, transmission electron microscopy-based techniques, electron holography, or Lorentz microscopy, the amazing 3D imaging presented this morning by Claire Donnelly, and more commonly used techniques such as Kerr-Fed microscope, MOOC, or the formerly used bitter colloid techniques. And of course, in the family of scanning probe microscopy-based techniques, we have the spin polarized SPM, magnetic exchange for microscopy, more recently the use of scanning nitrogen vacancy center magnetometry for the study of antiferromagnets, and the topic of this talk, which is magnetic force microscopy. So let's talk about MFM, the standard operation mode, and some of the limitations of the technique. Since its invention in 1997, the magnetic force microscopy is a commonly characterization technique for magnetic materials that have been applied to a variety of research and industrial applications. Some of the main advantages of this technique, first of all, is that it's a low-cost technique in comparison with the synchrotron-based techniques. So it's easier to have an MFM in a lab or in an institution and have different experiments quickly than for a synchrotron technique. We can achieve a lateral resolution better than 20 nanometers. We can obtain additional information, not only the 3D topography, but also electrostatic, mechanical properties, chemical properties, simultaneously with the magnetic properties. We can study individual elements, and also we can apply in situ magnetic field. We can analyze the magnetic behavior of a sample as a function of the magnetic field, so the magnetization reversal process. However, during years, the range of samples under study was restricted to classical ferromagnetic samples in the field of data storage, such as longitudinal hard disks, thin films with straight domains, pattern nanostructures with vortex configuration. But nowadays, thanks to the advances and developments in the MFM modes and instrumentation, we have other fields that are emerging, like the case of skyrmions, 2D materials, antiferromagnets, biological samples. And for that reason, it's important to advance or to explore new ideas in terms of resolution, sensitivity, the possibility to work in different environments, and one of the major drawbacks of the technique, which is to achieve quantitative information. So in this talk, I will discuss briefly some of the developments I've been working for the last years regarding these limitations. The standard MFM works in the so-called dynamic MFM mode, where the changes in the resonant properties of a vibrating system cantilever sample is registered. So we can check the changes in the amplitude, the phase of the resonant frequency of the cantilever oscillation, and can be related to the force gradient, medium force gradient, medium range force gradient, or long range force gradient that can be related to those parameters. So the MFM signal is related to this frequency shift or phase shift. So if we can measure this parameter, we can study the force gradient, which is related to the magnetic moment of the tip or to the stray field of the sample. It's important to notice that we have different interactions between a magnetic tip and a magnetic sample. We have a long range, magnetic or electrostatic forces, medium range, van der Waals interaction, or short range interaction. So to study or to have a magnetic force microscopy image, we need to perform two scans, one at a few nanometers from the surface to detect the topography, and another one at a few tens of nanometers to detect the magnetic interaction. The interpretation of the MFM images is not trivial. First of all, we need to assume that we don't have influence between tip and sample. It's not true for most of the experiments, but we need to assume, first of all, that the influence is negligible. In that case, the MFM contrast is proportional to the magnetic pole density at the surface of our sample. And we can distinguish between samples with perpendicular anisotropy and samples with in-plane anisotropy. If we have samples with perpendicular anisotropy, the poles are at the center of the domain. So we have this kind of images with dark and bright contrast, which corresponds to domains or with moments parallel or anti-parallel to the magnetic moment of our tip. If we have samples with in-plane anisotropy, the poles are at the domain walls. So we can distinguish not the domains, but the domain walls. And in the middle, we have different situations, perhaps not easy to interpret, and sometimes we need the help of other techniques or the micromagnetic simulations. If all the parameters works properly, in most of the experiments with the standard MFM operation mode, we can analyze and study individual elements such as nanoparticles, nanostructures, or nanowires. But sometimes MFM is susceptible to artifacts which can perturb the measured image, and without the careful handling can lead to an incorrect interpretation of the results. If we have, for example, the influence of the straight field of the tip. We want to measure this kind of structure, we expect this kind of magnetic configuration, and we don't observe any magnetic signals that are related to what we expect from micromagnetic simulation. Other times we have other interaction that make some artifacts in the MFM images, or we have this kind of contrast that we are not sure which is the correct magnetic configuration of our sample. So in this experiment, the standard MFM images are not enough. We need to explore different alternatives, like the use of custom-made MFM probes, the so-called probe engineering. We can fabricate a specific probe for a specific experiment, tuning the straight field, for example, for the tip. We can identify and nullify the other interactions, for example, the electrostatic interaction. And now we are able to distinguish the real magnetic configuration of a structure, or we need to apply in situ magnetic field to analyze the evolution of the magnetic contrast as a function of the field. So if we want to study the emerging fields with MFM, if we want to move from hard disk to bacteria, to biological samples, to 2D materials, or to antiferromagnets, we need to explore new ideas in terms of resolution, in terms of sensitivity, in terms of the possibility of working in different physical environments, and the possibility to obtain quantitative information. So this is the idea of this talk, to discuss briefly some of the developments about these topics. Okay, so I will start with the developments in non-standard advanced MFM operation modes and the probe engineering. Regarding the non-standard MFM operation mode, I will present the advantages of using the advanced variable field magnetic force microscopy, some multi-frequency techniques, in particular bimodal MFM, and the combination of MFM plus Kelvin-proof for microscopy, and some ideas of using magnetic dissipation for microscopy for nanoparticles. Let's start with the first one. The in-field magnetic force microscopy technique provides a reliable understanding of the internal spin structure and its magnetization reversal process, and has been applied to studies of domain configuration, domain wall properties in various magnetic in-fields, nanostructures, nano-objects, and so on. As an example of the advantages of using this kind of technique, I will present a study in sub 100 nanometer diameter permalloy hemispherical shaped nanodots with no uniaxial out-of-plane magnetic anisotropy or diaosystem orilla interaction, DMI. In the literature, we can find many previous works studying this kind of cylindrical permalloy nanodots or disc with this material, and it's reported that the stabilization of a vortex state is expected, or a single domain out of plane or in plane as a function of the aspect ratio. However, in this work, half fermionic spin textures were unexpectedly detected in this study by using advanced variable field magnetic force microscopy methods. The samples were prepared by the whole mass colloidal lithography technique by the group of Alfredo Garcia Rivas from the Basque Country University, and we will analyze the magnetic configuration of two kinds of nanodots, one of 140 nanometers in diameter and 50 nanometers in height, and another one of 70 nanometers in diameter and 30 nanometers in height. Firstly, we demagnetize the first sample, the bigger structure. and with an external out-of-plane magnetic field. We obtain this typical atomic force microscopy image for the topography and the magnetic force microscopy data. This image corresponds to magnetic vortex in good agreement with the hysteresis loop measured by Moog. The core can clearly be distinguished from the surrounding area, and this is because we have a magnetic vortex. Magnetic vortex is present in plane class flux magnetization with a core at the center where the out-of-plane magnetization component can be positive or negative, and the chirality can be clock or counterclockwise. In this structure, we can distinguish the polarity, but not the chirality. We repeat the same experiment with the smaller nanodots, and now what we observe is that the contrast at the center of the permalloy nanodots is always positive, corresponding to an antiparallel tip core configuration. This effect is unusual, as after the demagnetization process, we expect around 50%, of course, with the magnetization positive and 50% with the magnetization, the core magnetization negative direction. So we need to analyze this effect with more detail. Let's see. We have observed that we have an influence due to the magnetic state of the tip of the sample. So now we want to study the contrast as a function of the tip polarity. So the first idea is we will magnetize the sample with an out-of-plane, ex situ out-of-plane magnetic field. So we will fix the magnetic configuration of our sample. Then we will reverse the magnetic configuration of our tip, and let's see what happens. Okay, with a bigger sample, the vortices from the bigger sample present the regular behavior. Once the polarity is fixed, the contrast changes depending on the tip magnetization direction. So we reverse the core polarity. Okay, this is what is expected at the vortex core as a function of the tip straight field. But what happened with the smaller one? Surprisingly, despite changing the probe magnetization, the contrast at the center, again, in the case of the smaller nanodots, is always positive, corresponding to an antiparallel tip core configuration. No change is observed in this case. So the question is this contrast observed magnetic? Is an artifact? We can check with a non-magnetic tip, and now we can confirm that the images we are measuring are magnetic, because if we don't have a magnetic tip, we don't have any signal. So first idea is magnetic, but the question is not a vortex. What can we do? In that case, the standard MFM experiments in remanent state are not enough to determine the magnetic configuration of these smaller nanodots. The solution, first of all, is to perform advanced variable field magnetic force microscopy method. So we will apply in situ magnetic field, and let's see what happens with this configuration. If we apply magnetic field in X direction, and if we have a vortex, the fingerprint of the vortex spin texture is a perpendicular displacement of the core with respect to an in-plane applied magnetic field. This is something well known for different nanostructures, characterized for different geometries and with different techniques, something that is explained in the literature from a lot of time. So the perpendicular movement of the core is the fingerprint of the vortex spin texture. What happens with the smaller nanodots? In our case, we apply magnetic field in X direction, and now what we observe is the displacement of the core is parallel or antiparallel to the in-plane magnetic field direction, X or minus X direction. So this confirms our hypothesis that the dot magnetization configuration is not a vortex, but rather a hedgehog skyrmionic configuration with an essential radial in-plane magnetic configuration. The next question is what happened with the tip polarization? Why we don't observe a reversal in the contrast when we reverse the magnetic moment of the tip? We performed two more experimental sequences corresponding to different MFM tip polarities. MFM images in this sequence corresponds to the evolution of the core of the skyrmion moving antiparallel to the magnetic field. We need more or less 20 millitesla to displace the core from the center, and more or less 55 millitesla to saturate the nanodot. In this sequence, we have the polarity of the tip pointing down. We repeat the experiment, but now with the opposite tip polarity, now pointing upward, and the skyrmion core now moves parallel to the magnetic field. So we can conclude that we have two situations, Hedgehog skirmions of positive and negative core polarities. And we can compare our experimental results with micromagnetic simulations, and we found a very good agreement. In addition to the standard MFM images record at fixed magnetic base fields, we develop in situ MFM images in variable field, where we can stop the scan along one spatial dimension, and in the slow axis we can vary a gradual change of the magnetic field. This variable field MFM mode allows for the evolution of the critical fields in individual magnetic elements, such as our nanodots, or evaluate the coercive field of nanostructures or the MFM probes. So let's see. We will apply this method to the smaller permalloy nanodots. And with this method, we can visualize the skirmion core movement from nucleation to annihilation. And as we observe the importance of the polarity of the probe, we want to analyze the skirmion stability, the critical field, as a function of the tip straight field. So we will repeat this kind of experiments for different kinds of straight field of the tips. And we can establish a relationship between the local field and the range of stabilization for different probes. As we can see here, the influence of the tip straight field is very important. The skirmion annihilation field is almost 5 times larger when a commercial high moment MFM tip is used in comparison with the values obtained for custom-made low moment MFM probes. So we can conclude that thanks to the variable field magnetic form microscopy image, we can detect non-chiral hedgehog skirmions induced and further stabilized by the magnetic field coming out from the MFM probe in these soft magnetic nanodots in absence of DMI and perpendicular anisotropy. And of course, our experimental results are supported by analytical calculations and micromagnetic simulations that confirm the existence of these metastable Lille skirmions in permalloy soft nanodots even without external stimuli in a certain range of sizes. This advanced MFM method is useful also to reproduce local hysteresis loop in nanostructures. Here's an example of cobalt nanostripe. We can stop the scan line in this direction, vary the magnetic field in this other one, and obtain these non-standard MFM images. And taking profiles in these images, we can reproduce this local hysteresis loop for each nanostructure. So we can evaluate the coercive field, for example, as a function of the aspect ratio of nanostructures or as a function of different parameters. More examples using this advanced variable field magnetic form microscopy technique. In this case, for magnetic nanowires, we can study individual nanowires with modulated diameters and also variable composition. In this first example, we can distinguish between the straight field or domain wall pinning. We have a bamboo-like nanowire with remanent images, and here it's not possible to know if we have a domain wall or an enhancement of the straight field due to the enhancement of the diameter. With our non-standard variable field MFM imaging, we can observe these metastable states where the propagating of the domain wall is pinned at certain positions with enlarged diameter. The second example is a study of a magnetic ratchet device, which is originate in the asymmetric potential from this design increasing length of magnetostatically coupled ferromagnetic segments in iron, cobalt, copper, cylindrical nanowires. The magnetization reversal in neighboring segments propagates sequentially in steps, starting always from the shortened segments, irrespective of the applied magnetic field direction. And the last example is a multi-segment cobalt nickel nanowire. And here we have the nickel segments with a single domain configuration and the cobalt nickel segments with two kinds of configuration, a single vortex state or a complex multi-vortex magnetic configuration. And with our advanced images, we can study the reversal magnetization process, the magnetostatic coupling between the two segments, and obtain quantitative information like the electrical fields of nucleation, annihilation of the vortices. And finally, the last and more recent experiment of this technique is the evidence of the so-called Bloch skirmion tubes using this advanced MFM mode to image the magnetization reversal process of iron, cobalt, copper diameter modulated nanowires. And we can monitor the magnetic state of the nanowire during the applied field sweeping. We detect a drop of magnetic signal at a given critical field that only unveils the presence of a skirmion tube. And the reason is the compensation of the straight field of the different components. The next non-standard MFM operation mode that I will present today is the multi-frequency technique, the combination of MFM and Kelvin-proof force microscopy. The most outstanding feature of scanning force microscopy is its capability to detect different interactions in the same experiment. But however, if different long-range interactions are present, sometimes the magnetic signal can be misinterpreted. Sometimes the heterogeneous electrostatic interaction between tip and sample can be interpreted as magnetic signal, and it's necessary to be careful and, for example, modify the magnetic field and see if the magnetic contrast changes, or vary the voltage between tip and sample and see if we can reverse the contrast. And we can find if the contrast observed is or not magnetic. Our idea, we propose a combination of Kelvin-proof force microscopy and MFM in order to distinguish clearly the origin of the tip sample forces. I will not go into the details. If you want to know more about this setup, you can take a look in this paper or ask me later. But the idea is to compensate in real time the electrostatic forces between tip and sample by minimizing the electrostatic contribution to the frequency shift channel. And we will study different nanostructure of samples that exhibit high electrostatic interaction with the MFM tip. Two of them are magnetic, are cobalt nanostripes. And the last one is unknown. But let's see. Okay, in the first example, we have high magnetic and electrostatic interaction. So in our frequency shift channel, we have both interaction mixed. In the second sample, the magnetic signal is completely hidden by other long-range interaction, and this image is only an artifact, it's not magnetic. And the third example is the most critical situation. We have a new sample, a new magnetic material, perhaps a 2D materials, in this case are graphene flakes, but it's the same if we have nanoparticles, for example, or biomaterials, where we are not sure if we have or not a ferromagnetic behavior. In all the cases, we will perform the combination of MFM and Kelvin, and we will be able to compensate in real time the other interaction. In the first case, we can separate the magnetic interaction from the electrostatic interaction from the halo due to the fabrication process. And now we have a clean magnetic signal. In the second example, we perform again the compensation of the electrostatic charges, and now we can distinguish the magnetic configuration of our structure. And in the third situation, we don't observe any magnetic signal. So the previous image is just an artifact due to the electrostatic interaction. So it's very important to discard the presence of electrostatic interaction or electrostatic and magnetic crosstalk in biomaterials, in 2D materials. And in this kind of experiments, it's very useful to use this combination of MFM and Kelvin to compensate the electrostatic interaction. The other advanced MFM methods I want to show are a little bit more complicated. So again, I just want to show you the possibilities of them without going into the technical details. First, the multi-frequency or bimodal MFM. Bimodal scanning force microscopy is based on the simultaneous excitation and detection of two cantilevers modes. Typically the first and the second mode. And for that reason, we have more observables than with respect to conventional MFM methods. And we have a well-known theory beyond this technique. In the literature, bimodal MFM has been used to separate short and long-range interaction. So it means that with MFM, we can study the topography and the magnetic signal in only one scan. So we can enhance the lateral resolution. Another example we can find in the literature is the coupling or a nanomechanical effect to study superparamagnetic nanoparticles in liquid media. So here it's possible to take an advantage of the bigger number of observables, and we can study this effect, the mechanical and magnetic properties simultaneously. Recently, bimodal MFM has been used for quantitative imaging with high spatial resolution. Quantitative MFM is one of the major drawbacks of this technique, and now we have demonstrated that bimodal MFM provides high spatial resolution quantitative maps of magnetic properties of a high density hard disk and an iron palladium film reference samples. This bimodal MFM generates quantitative 2D maps of the magnetic moment and the magnetic field. We have the theory beyond the bimodal MFM, and we can transform the observables into the magnetic parameters in terms of the tip transfer function modes. The last advantage of bimodal MFM is the capability to detect subsurface magnetic contrast. We have, for example, an heterogeneous material with magnetic material partially covered with a non-magnetic material. Bimodal MFM allows us to separate the different interactions to detect and measure the topography, mechanical or chemical properties, for example, adhesion, and also magnetic properties. These magnetic properties with high resolution and sensitivity and are, in this case, subsurface magnetic information. And is another advantage of this bimodal MFM. Finally, magnetic dissipation for microscopy. We have the possibility of measuring dissipation in the scanning for microscopy, and we can obtain physical information from either the tip or sample by recording variation in the cantilever oscillation. In particular, dissipation in magnetic for microscopy has been studied by different groups in the world to study, for example, eddy currents, magnetoelastic interactions, variation in pinning potential, and sometimes the loss of energy is due to the reorientation of the magnetic state of the sample due to the influence of the tip, of the state field of the tip. Okay, so we can take an advantage of the tip-induced magnetization changes in the magnetic samples, which is an effect commonly undesired when we are carrying out a MFM experiment. But this is particularly useful for nanoparticles. And of course, we can measure the opposite situations, tip modifications due to the straight field of the sample. So the idea is we need high straight field, we need high influence between tip and sample. As we have a cantilever oscillating, we have an hysteresis loop. We are moving from regions from low field to high field. So we have dissipation of energy. The advantage of magnetic dissipation for microscopy, first of all, is the lateral resolution. We can achieve lateral resolution below 10 nanometers. And also we have the capability to detect power losses of few femtowatts. Thanks to the micromagnetic simulation, we can calculate the volume of the material involved in the magnetization reversal process, which is nearly 8 nanometers. So with this technique, we can study individual magnetic nanoparticles, core shell magnetic nanoparticles, or small clusters, and we can study magnetic nanoparticles with a behavior close to superparamagnetic state at room temperature. In that case, the magnetic moment can be reorientated due to the state field of the tip, and the loss of energy can depend on the cluster size, the tip state field, and the measurement condition. And the idea is to combine this technique with the measurements, for example, or hyperthermia treatments. And the last part of the talk, in the last part of the talk, I will talk about a little bit about the custom-made MFM probes, the so-called tip engineering. The development of new MFM instrumentation goes hand in hand with the development of new magnetic probes. And these customized probes are used to perform specific tasks and pass the limits of commercial AFM systems. For example, to achieve higher resolution, lateral resolution, to reduce or increase the probe sample interaction, or to be able to combine different scanning modes. We can find in the literature different trends. For example, the use of customized magnetic coatings, where we can vary the magnetic properties of the materials. We can find probes with magnetic other structures, such as carbon nanotubes, iron-filled carbon nanotubes, magnetic beads, or MFM probes with fabricated nanostructures. In the present work, we will explore the optimization of MFM probes for different applications by means of the fabrication of focused electron beam induced deposition, magnetic nanorods on top of non-magnetic AFM tips. These nanorods have been fabricated in Zaragoza under the supervision of Professor José María de Teresa. It's possible to use three-dimensional cobalt, iron, or core shell platinum iron based nanorods as MFM probes, and we have a very good control over the nanorod position on the cantilever, the geometrical parameters, and the material features in terms of composition and crystallinity. These custom-made MFM probes have a very high aspect ratio that give us several advantages. The first one is an increasing in the coercive field. Thanks to the high aspect ratio achievable with these favorite nanorod tips, we have magnetically harder, these tips are magnetically harder than the commercial ones. We can reach coercive field higher than 900 Oersted in comparison with 300 Oersted that have commercial standard MFM tips. In addition, we have lower van der Waals interaction, so it means that we can measure the magnetic interaction closer to the surface with an enhancement in the lateral resolution. And finally, the shape of the nanorod produced a very confined magnetic straight field whose interaction with the sample is extremely localized and perpendicular to the surface, and we have negligible in-plane components. This effect can be used for micromagnetic simulation, for numerical modeling, and is an advantage for quantitative MFM information. And it also gives us more sensitivity when measuring soft samples without perturbing the magnetic configuration. Okay, so the performance of this nanorod has been compared to that to standard tips using different reference samples, and in addition, different MFM experiments were carried out to explore the customization of the tip straight field by controlling the nanorod tip dimension. So the MFM only provides qualitative information about the magnetic configuration of the sample. Remember that the frequency shift is proportional to the magnetic moment of the tip. So we can vary the magnetic moment of the tip, we can vary the straight field, the frequency shift that we can measure. So it's possible to tune or to customize the tip straight field as a function of the experiment. These kind of jumps or spikes in the image are due to the tip influence on the sample configuration, which, as I said before, is something typically which is not desired when carrying out this MFM experiment. But it's noticeable that when we carry in these experiments with the sharper tip apex, we don't observe these reversible changes in the magnetic configuration. So the idea is try to customize the tip straight field by controlling the nanorod tip dimension. So as I said before, the frequency shift is proportional to the magnetic moment of the tip. We can measure the frequency shift for different situations, for different iron-based PEVIC tips, with different apex radio, with different parameters, with standard commercial tips. And we will see that it's possible to customize the tip straight field by controlling the nanorod tip dimension. Moreover, the lateral resolution is also improved. So we can select a specific tip for a specific experiment by tuning the straight field and by improving the lateral resolution. In collaboration with the group of Etienne Snoek, we have measured the straight field of different nanorods by electronholography, and we are able to quantify not only the magnetic induction inside the nanorod, which is more or less 0.7 in the central region, but also the magnetic straight field as a function of the distance to the apex. And we have detected that the straight field at the typical MFM distance, typically 50 nanometers, is quite similar in all cases. So it could be an advantage if we want to obtain these calibrated tips for quantitative information. And finally, we want to explore the possibility to perform magnetic force microscopy in liquid media. We need to take into account that we have a decrease in the quality factor when we measure with the same levels in liquid media in comparison to air or vacuum. And this quality factor is the signal to noise ratio measurement depends on both the environment and the cantilever properties. So it's important to explore the possibility of growing these nanorods on different kinds of cantilevers, because the level force constant constitutes another degree of freedom when choosing a probe for a typical experiment. And for biomaterials, for mechanically soft samples, it's necessary to use low force constant microcantilevers to avoid damage into the samples. We have demonstrated a few years ago that it's possible to detect the magnetic signal of the individual magnetic nanoparticles in liquid media. We have this kind of particles, this topography, an individual nanoparticle or a cluster. We have the magnetic information at ambient conditions, and we can repeat experiment in liquid media, and we are able to obtain more or less the same amount of magnetic signal, but the quality of the MFM images is still far from the one obtained at ambient conditions. And it's due to an intrinsic limitation of the technique. It's not due to our setup. It's a problem due to the decrease of the quality factor of the level when we measure in liquid media. So we have a signal to noise ratio nearly 5 times worse when we measure in liquid than in air. So we need to develop specific MFM probes if we want to enhance the signal to noise ratio to measure the same signal in liquid media. We can perform a standard study of fundamental MFM noise, and we can achieve a theoretical signal-to-noise ratio improvement of nearly a factor of 4 if we use specifically designed cantilevers, the so-called biolevers with a smaller spring constant to measure magnetic signal in liquid, but in the market are not available. We don't have any magnetic biolever. So we try to explore the possibility to grow our focused electron beam induced nanorod on this cantilever with low force constant. Promising option for measuring these biomagnetic samples in liquid. It's a proof of concept. Here we have a reference sample and we measure them with a nanorod, an iron nanorod of nearly 700 nanometers and 50 nanometers in diameter to measure in air and in liquid. And it's worth to notice that the quality of the MFM images acquired in liquid media now is close, very close to those acquired at ambient conditions. So we have an improvement in the signal-to-noise ratio by nearly a factor of 4 for these probes, in good agreement with our previous estimation of MFM noise. And finally, we can grow also core shell nanorods, and it's possible to use these nanorods onto cantilevers with low spin constant, and this can be useful for measuring magnetic materials under physiological conditions. And one advantage is that we can minimize the degradation of the magnetic properties of our tip due to the surface oxidation. And just to conclude, the take-home message, we have demonstrated that the non-standard MFM imaging is a useful technique to study emerging magnetic materials and structures, which are often extremely demanding in terms of resolution, sensitivity, and physical environment. And all these experiments demonstrate why MFM remains a powerful characterization tool. And finally, I would like to thank all my collaborators in this work, especially Agustín Asenjo and Manuel Vázquez Group, and people from Universidad Autónoma de Madrid, from Zaragoza, and all of you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your talk, Miriam. Really interesting. All we can do with a custom-made tip for MFM. I have one question from Jan. We have for a couple questions concerning. Actually, Peter raised his hand. So Peter, we will meet you so you can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry, my camera is not working. I need to reboot my computer. Thank you. Very nice talk. I really appreciate this overview about MFM. I made a comment in the chat. I think when we hear quite often, that synchrotrons are expensive. I think you have to look into what's the cost per paper. And I know that the facilities in the end are probably cheaper than single PI lab experiments, just as a statement. I think you need to really compare apples with oranges here. I have a question about the skyrmions. Skyrmions, as you know, are known, they're not only just two-dimensional, they go into 3 dimensions, and there's then the more exotic, non-trivial ones. Do you see any opportunities with MFM to look into the 3rd dimension of these spin textures? Is there any way, like you do, let's say 2 tips at the same time, pointing at different angles, analyzing then the stray field coming out from different depths? Is there anything that you're aware of?
Yeah, we try different ideas. Of course, MFM is a surface technique, so it's not so trivial to have this 3D information. It's still a work in progress, but we combine our MFM experiments with different micromagnetic simulations. We conclude also that it's possible to have this magnetic configuration even without the presence of the magnetic field, but we are not able to observe this in a real experiment. And we will try, or we want to try with other techniques to be sure that we are measuring the same effect, of course. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We have one more here from Jan. Concerning now skyrmions in nanodots. What is the thickness limit? Is there one? I would assume that thick dots can only host block skyrmions or maybe even bubbles.
Yeah, in the paper, sorry, because I go so quickly and I don't have time. We have a phase diagram regarding the thickness, the curvature, and this information. If you want, I can send you the paper later because it's a huge phase diagram.
There's a lot of limits. We have one more from Sam. Regarding imaging different sized fermions in different materials. Experimentally, what sizes fermions have been imaged and what would be the theoretical limits?
Okay, I think the fermions with MFM typically are measured in 2D fermions in thin films with DMI, for example, or with perpendicular anisotropy. As far as we know, in nanostructures, we think it's the first time we are able to obtain this kind of images, and it's necessary to measure within field magnetic, in plane magnetic field variable for microscopy, because with the standard measurements, we are not sure what kind of configuration we have.
I hope Sam. Thank you, Miriam, for your talk. Thank you, Miriam, for your talk. Now we go to our